Single dad donated his kidney to a woman he didn't know, unaware she was the lonely billionaire CEO. The morning Daniel Walker signed the donor papers, the nurse asked him again, "Are you sure about this? You've never met her." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile only people who've lived through storms wear. "She's someone's mother, someone's daughter," he said. "If I can give her a chance to live, that's enough." He didn't mention the stack of unpaid bills at home, the second job he'd just quit to be with his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. He didn't mention the nights he'd spent watching his little girl sleep and wondering what kind of man he wanted her to believe her father was. All he knew was that he'd read an online post about a woman needing a kidney match, and somehow, miraculously, his blood type fit. So, he volunteered. No expectations, no reward, just kindness. When he woke up after the surgery, groggy and aching, he caught a glimpse of the woman through the glass, still unconscious, hooked up to tubes. She looked fragile, her face pale and soft under the hospital lights. He didn't even know her name. A week later, when he was strong enough to walk, a nurse handed him a card. "She wanted you to have this," she said. It was a simple handwritten note. "You gave me life when I'd almost given up on mine. I'll never forget you." Daniel smiled, tucked it in his jacket, and went home. Life went on. 3 months later, he was back to fixing cars at a small garage in Seattle. The pay wasn't great, but it was honest work. Lily would sit in the corner doing homework, her tiny legs swinging from the chair. One rainy afternoon, a black car stopped outside. From it stepped a woman in a charcoal coat, dark sunglasses, and quiet confidence. "Mr. Walker?" she asked softly. "Yes, ma'am," he said, wiping grease off his hands. She removed her glasses, and in that instant, he recognized her eyes, the woman from the hospital. "I'm Evelyn Hart," she said. "You saved my life." He blinked, confused. "Wait, the Evelyn Hart? The CEO of Hart Technologies?" She nodded. The name echoed through his mind. One of the biggest tech companies in the world. The woman whose signature could change industries. Daniel felt suddenly out of place, like a mechanic in a movie he didn't belong in. "I've been trying to find you," Evelyn continued. "You disappeared after the surgery. I wanted to thank you properly." "You already did," he said quietly. "You're alive." That's enough, but Evelyn wasn't convinced. There was something deeply human about this man, something she hadn't seen in boardrooms filled with suits and stockholders. They talked for hours. About life, about Lily, about the late nights when Evelyn had almost given up hope before the transplant. She confessed something then, something raw. "I built an empire," she said. "But in the process, I lost everyone who mattered. My husband, my friends. I was surrounded by people yet completely alone." Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "Sometimes, life strips us down so we can start over, stronger, humbler." For the first time in years, Evelyn Hart felt seen. Weeks turned into months. Evelyn began visiting the garage often, sometimes bringing coffee, sometimes just sitting with Lily, listening to her stories. Slowly, something changed. The billionaire who once ruled from glass towers now laughed over grilled cheese sandwiches in a mechanic's break room. She started investing, not in Daniel's garage, but in him. She offered him a contract to manage a new community project, helping low-income families get affordable transportation. When he hesitated, she said, "Daniel, you gave me a second chance. Let me help you build something with yours." The emotional climax came one night when Lily got sick. A high fever, rushing to the hospital. Daniel panicking that he couldn't afford the bills. Before he could say a word, Evelyn was already there holding his daughter's hand. "You saved my life," she whispered. "Now it's my turn to protect what matters to you." In that sterile white room, surrounded by beeping monitors and antiseptic smell, the world suddenly felt right because kindness had come full circle. A year later, Daniel stood on a stage beside Evelyn at the grand opening of the Walker Heart Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to funding organ transplants for people who couldn't afford them. As cameras flashed, Evelyn turned to the crowd and said, "He didn't just give me a kidney, he gave me a reason to believe in people again." The applause still echoed when Daniel stepped down from the stage, Cameras flashed, reporters swarmed, and yet, amid all the noise, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace. Evelyn came down a few minutes later, her expression softer than the powerful, poised CEO she was known to be. "You did great," she said, her voice almost shy. He chuckled. "You too. I didn't even stumble. Miracle of the year." She smiled, but there was something behind it, something unspoken. Gratitude, admiration, and perhaps something deeper. In the months that followed, Daniel's life transformed in ways he never expected. He wasn't suddenly rich or famous. He didn't want that. But now people saw him. They saw kindness as strength, not weakness. The Walker Heart Foundation grew rapidly, offering free health screenings, partnering with hospitals, even funding schools that taught kids about empathy and social responsibility. Evelyn was always there, by his side, not as a distant billionaire, but as someone rediscovering what it meant to care. And Lily adored her. "Daddy," she whispered one evening as they watched Evelyn help volunteers serve dinner at a community center. "She looks happy now." Daniel nodded slowly. "She is, sweetheart. She found her family again." Lily frowned. "Who's her family?" He smiled. "Maybe us." One night after an event, Evelyn and Daniel found themselves alone in the quiet of the parking lot. The city lights glowed around them, reflected in puddles from the evening rain. "You know," she said softly, "before you came into my life, I thought success meant never needing anyone." "And now?" Daniel asked. "Now," she breathed, "I think it means having people you'd do anything for." There was a pause, a silence filled with every unsaid word between them. Then, almost without thinking, Evelyn reached out and took his hand. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Months passed, and their friendship grew into something more. Quiet dinners at Daniel's small apartment, laughter over burned toast, walks with Lily through the park. It wasn't luxury, but it was real. For the first time in her life, Evelyn felt free from the glass cage of wealth. And for Daniel, the man who'd once struggled to pay rent, love had returned in the form of the very woman whose life he'd unknowingly saved. The final twist came one crisp autumn morning. Daniel was working on a car outside the foundation's new building when Evelyn appeared, holding a letter. "What's this?" he asked. "It's from the hospital," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "They did a follow-up study on transplant matches." He frowned. "Okay, they found out something." "Daniel, we're distant relatives. My mother's side, your grandmother's maiden name. We share the same lineage." He blinked.